Normally I have someone else to introduce, but today you're stuck with me for a little while I tell you a little history that I learned. And before we do anything, since we're talking about Blessed Martin School, I'd like to invite Bishop Brennan up to give us a blessing.
It's higher because you're taller. A little shorter. There are two things I think about with regard to this St. Blessed Martin de Porres School. One is, and it's lamentable, that the church, giving into human weakness, cooperated with an invidious and insidious segregation system in our country. I saw the tail end of that growing up in a racially segregated state of Maryland. Okay. That's the sad part. The church has to always remember Christ first, the gospel first. You try to accommodate with the culture, but you have to stand out against the culture when it's wrong. And there were heroic people who were doing that, but they didn't have the power to change the system. The good side is that the Catholic Church in this city found a way to educate African American young people, even within the segregated system. They found a way to give them the blessing of a good education and formation in the faith. I believe some of those who went there are with us today. Hopefully they'll speak even later. So some things we regret, other things we're proud of. Okay. Let us pray. Lord God, thank you for the gift of faith, and let that faith lead us always to appreciate the value in all people who are made in your image and likeness. Let us stand against the occurrence of racism and other forms of discrimination against people which are unfair to them. Keep us always in your care. Guide us. Give us not only wisdom, but courage to live by that wisdom. All of this we ask through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Bishop. And as you mentioned, I do get to put the microphone up high. Normally I'm like this while I introduce people. So that's one benefit. Where are my notes? Here we go. Okay, so before we talk about the school, we're going to talk about the saint the school was named for, and that is Martin de Porres Velasquez. This is a statue of him that I own now because I've become a big fan since doing this research and learning more about him. And I'll tell you in a minute some of the things he's known for. This was carved by a Polish gentleman, and I got it on Etsy. If you're interested, he does all the saints, and I'll tell you more about Martin. I also have prayer cards for St. Martin. If you'd like to take one, I bought them. I'm donating them for this occasion. So this is not a library advocacy of any religious belief. That's my disclaimer before we go on. But you're welcome to one. It has his prayer on the back and picture. So, is anyone here, I know there's one at least, who went to Blessed Martin? Mr. Branham, anyone else? Okay. Anyone who taught there? You were hoping? Sister? Did you teach there? Yeah. What's your name? Okay, I did not know that you were here today. Thank you for coming. Okay, before this becomes a long history of Blessed Martin School, let me get started. This program is, first of all, dedicated to Sister Gabriella Wagner, who helped me with the program because I talked to her. At the time that I spoke with her, she was 102 years old. And I did it, this was during COVID, so I did a video interview. I wish I could play some, but I don't want to get into any technical issues today. But we are dedicating it to her. She taught high school, me, at Wheeling Central. And she taught at Blessed Mark. Many of those with a passing familiarity with Wheeling's history know that the segregated public school was Lincoln School. But most people, I find, are unfamiliar with the Catholic segregated school, which of course is Blessed Martin. This is what the building looked like when it was a school. And I'll tell you a little about the history of the building, courtesy Chuck Julian, who's done more research on that in a minute. But like I said, we're going to start with who was Blessed Martin. He was canonized in 1962, which was actually 7 years after the school closed. Blessed Martin was named after him. This portrait is from Lima, Peru. And this is a 3D facial recreation of what they think he looked like. Saint Martin de Porres Velasquez was born in Peru in 1579 to a Spanish man and a freed Panamanian slave, probably of African origin, but possibly indigenous. He faced relentless prejudice throughout his life, including from the church he loved because he was of mixed race. He graciously and tirelessly persevered, finally becoming a brother of the Dominican order. Appropriately for our troubled times, Blessed Martin, Saint Martin, is now the patron saint of public health workers. He was trained in the medical arts, and he cared for anyone from nobleman to slave. He is also the patron saint of mixed race people, those who seek racial harmony. He was a trained barber and is also the patron of barbers and innkeepers. Because he considered all work to be sacred, Martin was known as the saint of the broom. So he's a saint for workers, and he was, like Francis, known for as a friend of the animals and often depicted with animals, as you see here, from as lowly as mice, and I think someone even told me ants that he spoke of. So he was a patron of all the animals. He exhibited, according to his sainthood, the gifts of aerial flight, bilocation, and miraculous cures. He was beatified in 1837 by Pope Gregory the 16th and canonized in 1962 by Pope John the 23rd. His feast is November 3rd. The motto of the school, named after him, is rugged, climb through the rocks, be rugged, which you'll see is appropriate. So most of this is based on something written by, whoops, I went one too far. Sister Anne Patricia Whalen, which is in the archives of the diocese. She was the principal of the school, and she delivered an address in 1954, which is toward the end of the school, to the Sarah Club in Wheeling, which is a club that supports vocations of priesthood, etc. And the text of the speech she gave is primary source for this, but also the yearbooks that are held by the diocese of the school, newspaper articles, and records like the attendance records for the school. And the photographs mostly came from the yearbooks. So the school was established in August 1942 by Bishop Swint, you see here, during his tenure, and according to St. Anne Patricia, against the wishes of many local citizens, both races, white and black. Apparently, due to the struggle, the school was opened, quote, opened 3 times and closed twice. On the first attempt, the enrollment was too low. On the second attempt, it was thought the fear of persecution kept the students away. And according to a News Register article printed before the first reunion that the school held in 1971, parents were displeased because there were only going to be 6 grades. Then a delegation of older women and 1 man from the local Catholic African-American community asked to speak with Bishop Swint, who in turn invited Mother Magdalene, seen here, superior of the Sisters of St. Joseph, to join the meeting. According to Sister Ann Patricia's secondhand account from Mother Magdalene, one poor soul was wearing an apron, which she continually used to wipe away her tears, and others were crying. All they wanted was this school for their Catholic children. The bishop was moved enough by this emotional plea to promise to open the school for grades 1 through 8 if the elders could deliver enough students the next morning. They did, and Bishop Martin de Porres' school officially opened on the 3rd day with 16 boys and 23 girls. The annual report actually lists 21 girls. First 4 grades were in one tiny room of that house you saw, and the upper floor, an even smaller room, classroom. Sister Ann Patricia said, I dare say few schools can boast of such a rugged beginning, thus the motto. So it was called by her the former old ladies' home. And according to the city directory from 1890, it was called the West Virginia Home for Aged and Friendless Women. So there's where it's located, where Central's gym is now. It was opened in 1888 by Dr. Swope, that is the Home for Aged and Friendless Women, which actually means younger women who are troubled or abused or have who are unwed mothers. And now the Florence Crittenden Home sort of fills that role. So it was the Boyd property. It was owned by George Boyd, who was a Union captain from Ohio in the Civil War, and a wholesale boot and shoe seller. And later, he was a Ohio County law librarian, which is the same position Harry Jones, the gentleman who's the subject of our exhibit upstairs, held toward the end of his life, ironically. By 1912, the elderly residents of both Catholic and Protestant religions were housed there, so something like 23 of them. Gives you an idea of the size of the house. This, of course, is Ms. Cunningham, Anna Sinclair Cunningham, the originator of the Home for Aged and Friendless Women. By 1940, the Block family had decided to give their house, their mansion, to be the new home for aged women, now known as the House of Friendship. By 1942, it was dedicated, and this paved the way for something else at the 13th Street property. So Mother Magdalene issued this announcement letter in which she announced that the school, Blessed Martin, would be opened, and it was. St. Martin, Blessed Martin at the time, was chosen as the patron, and despite continued resentment, the sisters, for example, had to sneak up to the school behind the Masonic temple to avoid angry neighbors, according to Sister Whalen. The school grew, and in the second year had enrolled 43 students. Monsignor Yon, seen here, was instrumental to the establishment of the school. And as the enrollment continued to grow, his duties grew, and one of them was retrieving boys from the police station, also pleading cases of justice to help our boys get a fair deal. He spent a lot of mornings in juvenile court. I thought this was an interesting and rather jarring passage to read in the context of opening a new school, and it says something about race relations during segregation, I think. And grades 9 through 12 were added in the third year, and Blessed Martin became a high school as the Second World War came to an end By 1954, toward the end, the school boasted a graduating high school class of 125 students without soliciting any, it was a combined classes. Went out a first place class rating from the State Board of Education and a menu of academic, commercial, and home economic courses. According to newspaper reports, representatives of the State Board of Education from Charleston gave Blessed Martin a Class A rating. Dorothy Daniels Jackson became the first student to graduate from Blessed Martin, having attended all 12 years of her primary and high school education. Blessed Martin's first graduating high school class included 7 students: Norman E. Campbell, Theodore May Cooper, William A. Galloway, Albert A. Gentry, Lon Burl Spriggs, Wanda Elaine Lyle, and Wiley Walker. In 1948, 10 full scholarships to formerly all-white Catholic universities were awarded nationwide to African American graduates of Catholic high schools. 3 of them, as you can see, went to Wheeling's Blessed Martin honor students, including Spriggs, who went to Duquesne, Campbell to DePaul, and Galloway to Notre Dame. So there they are. There's Harry Jones. In May 1946, he was still one of Wheeling's only, if not the only, African-American attorney, and 10 years previous had given that address that's featured in our exhibit upstairs, Wheeling's 20th Man. He also wrote a column for the newspaper called Along the Color Line, and this particular article was called Progress of the Catholic Church Among Negroes in the United States. And I apologize for using the word. This is a term that was popular at the time. And it's in all the newspapers. It's unavoidable. In it, he wrote, in West Virginia, under the leadership of the Most Reverend John J. Swint, Bishop of the Diocese, the Catholic Church has made considerable progress among Negroes. Many members of the race have joined the church, and the program in their behalf has been expanded. This is noticeable here in Wheeling. In September 1942, the Blessed Martin School for Negro Boys and Girls was opened here. The school has 10 grades taught by 6 teachers in a commodious building at 13th and Jacob Streets. 81 pupils at the time were enrolled. And he went on to cite, listed 3 Catholic churches in the state at the time, African-American Catholic churches, 1 in Bluefield, Huntington, and 1 in Bristol. Here's a close-up of that image, which I wish we had the original one. Blessed Martin faculty included several of the Sisters of St. Joseph, a few of whom are seen here at the 1977 reunion. Sister Celestine Teresa Anderson, who taught English, French, and Latin. Sister Grace Lawley, Monsignor Jan, Sister Celeste Anderson, Gabriella Wagner, Mary Jo Yoakum, Julia Eastep, Mary Immaculate Spires, Teresa Fleckstein, Anne Regina O'Leary, and Anne Patricia Wayland, the principal. And there is Bishop Hodges. There were only a few, there were only a few secular teachers and even less African-American teachers at the school. One of them was Mrs. Dorothy Cooper, who was president of the PTA. The curriculum included typing, bookkeeping, and the arts, and some of the chemistry classes were taught at Wheeling Central in segregated classes, of course. According to Sister Gabriella Wagner, when I spoke with her at 102, when she was sharp as a tack, when the 9th grade was added in 1944, the curriculum included Latin, French, business, and home economics. Folk dancing was taught, along with physical education. The first 6th grade classrooms were on the first floor, this according to Sister. 7 through 12 were upstairs. 1st and 2nd were in one room. 3rd, 4th, and 5th in another, and 7th and 8th in another. The first year, she recalled, I had algebra in the 1st and 2nd grade, Imagine that combination. I taught the little ones, and then I went upstairs for algebra with the freshmen and sophomores. You can see a full list of the faculty that I've found from the annual reports that the diocese has. If you go to archivingwheeling.org and search for Blessed Martin, you'll see the story. It contains a full list and also all of the attendance records from 1942 through 54. What you see here is an annual report from 1942 showing, as I mentioned, 37 students, elementary students. There were also social and extracurricular activities. This is the modality. Sodality, it's a charitable organization. Glee club, recreation room, teen dances. They offered one of the first segregated Girl Scout troops, Troop 60, and Camp Manor, the day camp for Negro girls, opened at Wolf Playground near Lincoln School under the direction of Mrs. Martha Spriggs. The event featured cookouts, games, crafts, storytelling, and Gwendolyn Campbell was named Cookie Queen for the sale record cookies. Troop 60 was awarded a plaque for best troop in cookie sales. Awards were presented for things like good grooming. Blessed Martin students were frequently called upon to provide entertainment for interracial school activities. At a 1949 Ohio County Teachers Association meeting at Clay School, for example, Lincoln and Blessed Martin, taught by Emmy Fassig, you know Mrs. Fassig, performed a number of dance specialties. So, needless to say, Blessed Martin was a small school with a microscopic budget. Expensive sports like football were unheard of, but basketball was. They did excel at basketball. Sister Gabriella remembers student athletes practicing in the yard behind the school, and white people came and played with them, she said. It was very much integrated at the time in the playground. The students didn't mind if they were white or black, as long as they could play ball. Finding the money to pay for travel to play other schools who were black schools, because that's all they could do at the time, was a significant obstacle for Little Blessed Martin, and they were constantly seeking funding. They had things like tag sales, etc. And intelligence or sports writer named Tony Maistel, you see his picture there, wrote that, "I believe that Lincoln and Blessed Martin athletic teams, no matter what sport they compete in, should receive the backing of sports fans, as they play a major role in the future of the kids forming the teams and the youngsters attending those schools. Kids learn good comes out of sportsmanship and teamwork. Basketball is a recreation for the boys of Lincoln and Blessed Martin Highs, and unless they receive the support of the fans, there may come a time when the schools will have to drop the sport." So apparently on the grade school level, integrated play was fine. Blessed Martin played St. Michael's and other white schools. But high school was strictly segregated, which is interesting, and it required a lot of travel, obviously, to play other black schools. Blessed Martin frequently played Clarksburg, Elkins, Riverside, Fairmont, Dunbar, Morgantown, Monongalia, Parkersburg, Sumner, Piedmont, Howard, Weirton, Dunbar, and they usually played an alumni game to fill out the schedule. Maistel, I just mentioned, lauded both Blessed Martin and Lincoln as the travelingest basketball teams in the state. Those two in Weirton, Dunbar were the only black teams in the northern panhandle, so the home and home schedule required a lot of travel south, with all three squads traveling more than 1,100 combined miles. Lincoln would add 320 additional to play the state's Negro tournament at West Virginia State College and Institute. The United States Navy standby is join the Navy and see the world, Maistel commented, but Lincoln's Highs coach J.W. Kinney and Cleve Mason of Blessed Martin say, play basketball, Lincoln and Blessed Martin, and see the state of West Virginia. In 1953, Lincoln and Blessed Martin played each other in basketball for the first time in the Section 1 championship game of the West Virginia Negro High School tournament, with Lincoln prevailing 47-40, so a fairly close game. They both advanced to the regional finals. On 5 March 1954, Wheeling had the honor of hosting the West Virginia Athletic Union Section A basketball tournament at Central's gym, with Blessed Martin serving as the host school. The 4-team tournament included eventual champion Lincoln, Blessed Martin, Parkersburg Sumner, and Merton Dunbar. It's worth noting that, and this team is historic, I'll tell you in a second. Patricia Whalen, Sister Patricia Whalen, the principal, wrote in her history that Blessed Martin played against Peyton City, a white school, and it was the first black-white game in the state. This is not true. According to my research, it was actually Cameron that played Blessed Martin. You can see it here in this article where it says, Blessed Martin faces Cameron in the Northern Panhandle's first interracial game. According to Bob Barnett, who wrote the book The Black Athlete in West Virginia, the first integrated game was actually Huntington St. Joe versus Huntington Douglas, played in 1948. But Blessed Martin did play Cameron, and they did defeat Cameron. Yeah. 79-59. So move them out. Brown versus Board of Education, 1954. Supreme Court held that separate but equal, that is, segregated educational facilities for racial minorities were inherently unequal, therefore violating the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, meaning they were unconstitutional. They had to be phased out. That's what you call a landmark decision. In the wake of Brown, the Ohio County School Board had voted to postpone integration until 1955. Superintendent J.P. McHenry said most Negro families appear here to be adhering to the board's request, but a subsequent article was headlined, 3 local schools enrolled 12 Negroes, in which McHenry said they shut up and we accepted them. 6 boys and 3 girls, including Ann Thomas, were accepted into Wheeling High. 1 girl was accepted at Triadelphia High, 2 boys at McKinley Vocational. According to Resume of the History of Blessed Martin School from the Archives of the Sisters of St. Joseph, the unidentified author wrote, I found this in the archive, in 1955, it was thought best to follow the injunction of the Supreme Court and permit the 150 students enrolled to be integrated in the public and private schools of the area. Good moral habits have been taught and respect for God and humanity were stressed. The last class of Blessed Martin School graduated June 1955. Many, but not all, were enrolled in Cathedral or Wheeling Central Catholic High. Reverend Yon, in announcing the closing of the school, said as many as possible would be absorbed into Central and Cathedral. He said, I'd like to take care of them all, but overcrowding conditions makes it impossible. The last graduation speech at Blessed Martin was delivered by valedictorian Johnny Galloway. Interviewed in 2015, Ralph Edwards Sr. noted that he and 2 of his Blessed Martin classmates, James Mayfield and John Galloway, walked through the doors of Wheeling Central Catholic High School as the first black students to attend the school. No African-American girls attended St. Joseph's Academy, which was the girls' Catholic school associated with Central that first year. 1956, Ohio County Board of Education voted to close Lincoln School on June 30th. At that point, only Hardy, Cabell, Jefferson, Boone, and Berkeley counties still hadn't closed their segregated schools in response to Brown. That same year, the Intelligencer reported that 277 black students are attending one-time segregated schools, 43 in high school, and 20 at Wheeling High School. The former site of Blessed Martin was acquired by Wheeling Central, and they built the gym. You can see this picture of the Boyd House being destroyed to make way for the gym that we know now. And so it looked like that. Now it looks like this. Yeah, 13th and Jacob. Blessed Martin alumni organized the first reunion in 1971, 16 years after the doors closed. 140 students gathered at Wilson Lodge, included a speech by Edmund Yon, then pastor of Corpus Christi, dinner and a dance, and then in 1977, they had a second reunion. Bishop Hodges, Monsignor Yon, the sisters, many former students were there at Glessner, and Sister Ann Patricia was the keynote. But what about our patron saint? Well, here you see the statue of Blessed Martin, a gift of the Dominican Fathers of New York City, which was once housed at the school. You can see in the background, so I brought it forward a little bit. And at this point, I'm going to call up Archivist John Eric Gillot to tell us what happened next.
Move this down. Was I just here a few weeks ago? I was. Yes. So thank you for having me, Sean. Thank you for this program and a wonderful month here of celebrating Black History Month at Lunch with Books. So, Bishop Brennan came to us from Washington, D.C. by way of Baltimore, and was pastor of some wonderfully ethnically diverse, culturally diverse parishes. We think of Baltimore and Washington as being these great ethnic and cultural hubs. We don't think of West Virginia as being so ethnically and culturally diverse, but we are. And I can assure you, I get calls and emails from people all over the world who trace their family history, their heritage back here to West Virginia. And we felt like we should be doing more to recognize our ethnic and cultural diversity. And so in the course of Sean conducting his research, did a lot of it in the diocesan archives. I learned a lot about Blessed Martin through Sean and from our dear friend, late Ann Thomas, who was my neighbor. She made sure that I knew about Blessed Martin. So I learned a lot from them. And it was several years ago that a friend of mine contacted me, and he had been at a liturgical storage warehouse in the Diocese of Pittsburgh. I don't know if you were aware, but the Diocese of Pittsburgh for several years has been undergoing a really significant reconfiguration. They are closing or merging around 100 of their parishes. And so just like we do here, when a church closes there, they take any of the material, the liturgical material that's useful and could still be used, and it goes into a warehouse where they then are able to recycle it back out into other churches. And a friend of mine had sent me photos from that warehouse, and it looked like a retirement home for statues. There were so many of them there. And peeking out of the corner of one of the photos, I recognized the statue of Blessed Martin. And I recognized it because it was identical to the statue that I had seen in the photos from Blessed Martin School. So I proposed to Bishop Brennan that this would be a wonderful opportunity to bring this statue. Now, I don't know if this is the original statue from the school here. It's identical, but we don't know what happened to the statue that was at Blessed Martin School. But I thought this would be a wonderful opportunity to bring the statue home and to recognize the school and our rich Catholic heritage here in East Wheeling and the Diocese of Wheeling-Charleston. So, that's another one I was looking for. But yes, so we were able to acquire the statue from the Diocese of Pittsburgh. We sent the statue off to our liturgical arts conservator. Okay. Here we are. So here's, we sent the statue off to our conservator in Northeast Pennsylvania, Judy Dotzel. She's been working with our diocese for years, and she does beautiful work. The statue, I'm not sure which parish it came from in Pittsburgh, but it was in rough shape. I don't think it didn't come right out of the sanctuary. I think it had been in storage for a little while. The base was crumbling. There were holes. The paint was peeling off. So really in rough shape. And so this is an image from when Judy had it in her studio in the midst of the plaster repair. And there you can see the finished product. She does beautiful work, and she's actually coming back just next week. She'll be on her way to Columbus to work on a statue, but we had a couple little nicks and scratches in transportation bringing Blessed Martin home here from Northeast Pennsylvania, so she's going to do some touch-ups when she stops here. So he'll look even better next week. But that's all. I didn't have too much to share here, but we're really proud to be able to bring this back to the site of the school. And you can see some photos here just last month. We had a wonderful dedication and blessing of the statue back at the gymnasium. We had a lot of cooperation from Becky Sandcombe and Mike Young. It was really important to us that we bring Blessed Martin back to the place where he came from there. So during one of the home basketball games, we had a wonderful little ceremony there. Several graduates of the school. And I thought it was really fantastic that the majority of the people that were there that night had come to see a basketball game. This was just icing on the cake. But everyone was so respectful and clapped and cheered for all of the alumni from the school. And it was really fantastic event. There you see some of the alumni, the alums from the school. And with the statue, we also put up a plaque here, and I'll read it if you can't read it there. In cherished memory of the students, clergy, religious, and laity of Blessed Martin School, 1942 to 1955, opened on this site under the stewardship of St. Joseph Cathedral and the Sisters of St. Joseph on behalf of the African American community of East Wheeling who desired a Catholic education during the era of segregation. St. Martin de Porres, patron of racial harmony, pray for us. So we're so happy to have this back on site. It's a very visible witness and reminder of Blessed Martin School from 1942 to 1955. Thank you.
And while I attended this, it was a great ceremony. There was a young lady who sang the fight song. I wish I had audio to go with this, but I'm not even going to try because I don't want to crash the whole thing. But does anyone know her name? Walker? She sang the fight song, and it was a nice moment, and all the students cheered for her. I was hoping she'd be here to sing it for us today, but apparently not. These are the words to the song and sources. Now, before we conclude, I want to encourage you to take one of these cards, and even if you don't want to keep it, put it somewhere that someone can find it, if you would. I don't want any cards left. I have mine too right here, so I'll get one for Mom and one for me. I want to see if Mr. Branham would speak just for a moment about his memories. Is that okay? Am I putting you on the spot?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay. I promise to do that.
I've been put on the spot before. Again. I'm going to get one of these cards before they're all gone. Huh?
This man attended Blessed Martin.
Yeah. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I did attend Blessed Martin. And having done so, I can say that we've come a long way.
Yes.
More importantly, we've got a long way to go. When I attended Blessed Martin, it was in the years of 1954 and 55. And I was a first and a second grader there. Okay. So after the integration of schools, we did migrate to the other schools in the Ohio Valley. I went to Cathedral, and after Cathedral, I did attend Wheeling Central and graduated in 1965 from Wheeling Central. My wife would tell you I went on to Harvard from there, but there wasn't any place to park, so I came back. The most of which I could tell you about Blessed Martin really had to do more with the playground out back. Okay? I remember that. I remember lunch. I presume I learned something, okay, because we did proceed on from there. But I certainly thank Sean and the Ohio County Public Library for maintaining this rich history, because it is an integral part of our American history. And it does speak well to, segregation as well as integration. And as we try to find peace and harmony and faith among all citizens, this certainly rings loud of an effort that was made that long ago. There's some statistics that will show you that there's still some work to be done. Wheeling, I think, has about a population of African Americans of 3%. The nation has a population of about 14%. The prison system has a population of about 52%. But somehow, and you can see the sports figures that came out of Lincoln and Blessed Martin, the Final Four has a population of about 87%. So yes, we can certainly applaud that. But I think that the rich history that my parents thought when the integration took place that we should stay with the Catholic school education. I never became Catholic. The year I graduated from Wheeling Central, there were 1,400 students there. There were 6 blacks, and to my knowledge, 1 non-Catholic, which was me. I did get exempt from the exams and catechism, and the way that came about, not that I was some theological scholar, okay, but the Bible school at Macedonia Baptist Church was usually ahead of what was being taught in catechism by about 2 or 3 weeks. So by the time we got to teaching it at Central or learning it at Central, I'd already learned it from my church. So I got high enough grades, I was exempt from the exams. And of course, then they wanted to know if I was interested in going into the priesthood. You'll hear these announcements, okay, Douglas Branham, would you please come to the office? And I'm like, oh man. And all the other guys are going, uh-oh, what did he do? Okay. And they get down there, so they had the bishop was there and a couple other people, and they want to give you this talk about, are you interested in going into the priesthood? And I let them go through the whole thing. And then I remind them, I said, I believe one of the qualifications to join the priesthood is to be, oh God, what is it? Oh, Catholic. And they said, well, yeah, of course. And I said, well, I'm not. But it was certainly a great education, okay, to be had by the nuns and the Marist brothers. Marist brothers had a little difficulty at Central. A lot of them left the brotherhood after they got to Central. I'm not sure what it was. It might have been those young ladies in those uniform skirts. They'd come and the nuns would have them kneel down and make sure the skirt hit the floor, but then they'd go rolling up at the waist after they passed that test. And here is the statue of Blessed Martin. There was also a statue at Central. And it was Central Catholic High School Boys Division, and then the Academy, which was the girls division. And there was a statue in the hall, the boys better not go past, okay? That's what led over to the Academy where the girls were. But I think preserving Blessed Martin statue and this rich history, let's give Sean Duffy and the Ohio County Public Library a round of applause.
And thank you, sir. And thanks to John Eric and the diocese for bringing and restoring this statue. Round of applause for that. Sister, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you want to have anything to say about your teaching? Anything? Come on up.
I guess
Teach us.
Tell us about the ruler.
You get the last word.
Sorry. No, I taught at Blessed Martin's just for a few months before I made my entrance into the community. I was asked, how do you feel about going up to a school with all black children? And I said, doesn't matter to me. I said, my dad used to say, you turn you inside out, you'll be black. Turn them inside out, they'll be white. So I never had any trouble dealing with the children or the parents. It was a wonderful school. The children were so anxious to learn, and they were really a wonderful group to work with. And they asked questions galore, which is normal for children at that age. I taught 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade in one classroom. So you can imagine what that was like. My first year out, no background. So I really enjoyed teaching them, though, because they were interested in learning. And since I was young and beautiful, they thought, oh, wow, we get somebody new. So they were trying to all their tricks that they could play. And I said, forget that. I've been there, done that, and I know what you're trying to do. So stop doing it. So they learned very quickly that I was not one to be fooled with. So I really enjoyed working with the children. I had 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, which was a hard job to do, being my first year out. But we got along very well, and each child would help the other child to learn something. And it was very nice because we got into groups, we talked about different things, we explained different lessons to the other younger children, and it was a wonderful group. I really enjoyed being there. When I was asked, do you want to go there? I said, my dad always said, turn you inside out and you'll be black, and turn the black inside out, they'll be white. There's no division. So I had a wonderful experience at Blessed Martin's when I was there. And like that, I was a young girl just entering the community. I didn't know too much, but I do know that I loved to teach and enjoyed working with the children. And I had 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade the first year. And it was a problem for me because I had to make lesson plans for different groups. But they were willing to learn. They wanted to learn. They wanted to know, why did you enter the sisters? Why did you become a nun? You're too pretty to be a nun. And I thought, what are the nuns? I think most of the sisters that entered were pretty beautiful myself. But anyhow, we got along very well. I still see a few today that I meet on the street sometime. And they say, oh, Sister Anna Marie, I know you. You taught me in the 3rd grade. I said, well, I don't remember you. Because, you know, at that time you had a larger group. And I had 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. So it made it very difficult. But we learned and we got along well together. And I really enjoyed my experience with the community there. So thank you very much for coming.
Okay, that concludes our program. Take a card. Thanks for coming today. See you next week for Trailblazing West Virginia Women.
Thank you.